2 days. That's all it would take for one of the most powerful cities on Earth to start drowning. Not from a flood, not from rising seas, from something far more mundane, from silence. Most people assume our cities are permanent, steel, concrete, glass, built to outlast us. That assumption is wrong, and the reason it's wrong is stranger than you'd expect. In 2007, journalist Alan Weisman published a book called The World Without Us. He wasn't writing fiction. He spent years interviewing engineers, biologists, and structural experts, asking them one specific question: what actually happens to the human world in exact detail the moment humans disappear? He started with New York City, and what he found was unsettling. Manhattan sits on top of roughly 40 buried streams. Engineers pump about 13 million gallons of groundwater out of the subway system every single day, just to keep the tunnels dry. Not during storms, on an ordinary sunny day. The moment the power grid goes down, those pumps stop. And according to the transit engineers Weisman interviewed, within 36 to 48 hours, the entire New York subway system is flooded. Within 20 years, the steel columns holding up the streets above those tunnels corrode and buckle. The pavement starts caving in. What used to be avenues slowly become rivers. This isn't speculation about some distant future. It's already happened, just not everywhere at once. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. Within a day, authorities evacuated over 116,000 people from a 1,600 square mile area around it. They were told they'd be back in a few days. They never returned. For decades, scientists assumed the story of that land was a story of radioactive destruction, a dead zone. Then, in 2015, a research team led by environmental scientist Jim Smith at the University of Portsmouth published something that overturned that assumption completely. Working with long-term census data from the Chernobyl exclusion zone, they found that populations of elk, deer, and wild boar were just as large, sometimes larger, than in nearby uncontaminated nature reserves. And wolves. Wolf populations inside the exclusion zone were 7 times higher than outside it. Smith's conclusion was blunt. He said it wasn't that radiation was good for wildlife. It was that ordinary human presence, the hunting, the farming, the roads, the traffic, was worse for these animals than a nuclear meltdown. Read that again. An actual nuclear disaster did less long-term damage to that ecosystem than we do simply by living there. So the pattern is already visible. Remove humans, and nature doesn't collapse. It expands into the space we occupied. Weisman calculated that within roughly 500 years, most human neighborhoods would be fully reclaimed by forest. Streets, foundations, driveways, gone, buried under root systems and topsoil. But here's the part almost nobody expects. Not everything disappears at the same speed. Some things barely move at all. Bronze doesn't corrode the way steel does. Statues built centuries ago could remain recognizable for thousands of years. Weisman noted that certain chromium alloys, the kind used in stainless steel cookware, could theoretically last around 100,000 years if buried away from oxygen. Long enough that whatever finds them might have no context for what they even are. And the single longest-lasting trace of our existence won't be physical at all. It will be radio. Every broadcast signal we've ever sent is still moving outward through space right now, an expanding sphere of transmission that will keep traveling long after every building, every bone, every trace of us on this planet is gone. So this is the actual timeline. 2 days for the tunnels to flood, 20 years for the streets to buckle, 500 years for the forests to take the cities back completely. And then, radio silence still traveling outward into deep space, the last signal of a species that once thought its cities were permanent. Here's what's uncomfortable about all of this. It's not really a story about concrete and steel. It's a story about how much of what feels urgent right now, the argument, the deadline, the thing you're certain matters, exists entirely because there are humans here to maintain it. Remove the maintenance, and it doesn't slowly fade. It reverts almost immediately. We tend to imagine our impact on this planet as something permanent, something that will need to be reversed or repaired. But the honest version, the one Weisman spent years documenting, is that the planet isn't waiting for us to fix anything. It's just waiting for us to stop pumping the water.